welcome to Dottotech. We have a huge show lined up for today. It's a show that I've been looking forward to for at least a year, although it feels more like a decade. Today we'll show you things that only a few years ago were unthinkable. We will show you how to run Windows on a Mac. And the first question is, why? Mac users especially say, why would I want to run Windows on my Mac? Well, the answer more often than not is, actually, you don't want to. There are only a few reasons to want to run Windows on a Mac, but those are very good reasons, and they can make all the difference. It's a problem that tends to keep PC users on their PCs. The problem? Certain software that's only available in Windows. Now I can hear those light bulbs turning on. If you run Windows on your Mac, you're going to have all the power and flexibility of the Mac operating system with the added bonus of being able to use those special programs that you need on a PC. It could be, say, an accounting solution or an inventory management tool. In some cases, it's productivity software like Outlook or Lotus Notes if your company is committed to those applications. Now, in a lot of cases, there are great Mac equivalent software for almost every application. For instance, Microsoft's Entourage or Apple's Mail and iCal, those are great alternatives for Outlook or Maximizer. But sometimes you need to be able to run Outlook or Maximizer in its native mode, or you need a CAD program or a real estate program. Those cases, there's not a lot of Mac alternatives available to us. So we've long had occasional need to run Windows on our Mac. It was always doable, but not really elegant. Well, that all changed with the migration of Apple moving from the Motorola chipset to the Intel Core Duo. Suddenly, we could see the potential of running Windows in native mode on the Mac. Now, this term native mode is an important term to understand. We can run Windows on the Mac either in emulation or native mode. Now, emulation means that the computer boots up like normal in our Mac operating system. And then we run an application that actually creates something called a VM, a virtual machine, which is a machine within the machine. It's basically a software program that tells your Mac that it's a PC running right there. Your computer will work and act just like a PC, but behind that, the Macintosh operating system is still running. It's software that represents a PC running. Now, in native mode, the Mac actually boots in Windows, not in the Mac operating system. At that point, it is a real Windows machine. The benefit is primarily speed, because in native mode, the computer can run faster than it can in emulation. But the drawback is, it's a Windows machine. All of your iLife applications, your Mac applications, they're not available to you. If you want to access those programs, you've got to shut your computer down and then reboot it in the Mac operating system. However, in emulation mode, you can have both active at the same time. Switch back and forth between Mac and PC as many times as you'd like without restarting the computer. So you've got a few choices. Both are good depending on your applications, and you can choose the one that works best for you. Now, today we're going to show you both ways, but I want to begin by showing you the native solution. Now, Apple ships with a utility called Bootcamp. It allows you to install Windows on your Mac, and I've installed that on this notebook, on this MacBook. Now, as I boot the computer, I'm holding down the Option key, which is going to allow me to choose which partition I want to boot in. We see here two hard drives at boot up, and I can choose between these to boot in the Macintosh operating system as it is right now, or I can choose to boot here in Windows, which is what I'll choose to boot this computer in. I've already set up this MacBook as a dual boot system so that I can run both Windows and Mac on it. But let me walk you through the process that happened. As I mentioned, Bootcamp ships with all Macintoshes, and it's the utility that we use to set up our system for dual boot. Now, when you run Bootcamp, you just run through a series of steps to basically configure the computer to allow it to run both Macintosh and Windows. The first step is doing something called partitioning the drive. You saw two drives there, but actually that's just one drive. That's the 160 gigabyte internal hard drive from this computer that I partitioned into two different logical partitions. One of them for the Mac to run in and one for Windows to run in. So the first decision we make is how big a partition do we want for each side. We have 160 gigabytes to divide. So you're going to basically make that decision on what type of data and what sort of files you want to store on each partition. I made my Windows partition 32 gigabytes. Plenty large enough for me to install Windows and any applications I want to run on the Windows side and store a small amount of data. My big time data, my photos, my video, my music, I'm going to store that all on the Mac side because I like working with that in the Mac a lot better. Once we've partitioned our hard drive, the next step is formatting the drive because the Mac and Windows have different disk formats to run within. The Windows runs under something called NTFS and the Mac uses HFS, which is the hierarchical file system, and they don't live in the same world. So we have to then format the Windows partition. And this is really the scariest step in the whole process because you actually has to erase that portion of the disk. So you have to be careful as you go along, and it's a good reason to have your entire Mac backed up before you do it in case you make a slight mouse miscalculation. But I think that's very difficult to do. It's pretty straightforward to be able to format it properly without any difficulty. Once you've done that, it's time to install Windows, and you need an original copy of Windows to do that. Just installing Bootcamp only sets the stage for running Windows. You still have to install Windows with a real license before you can actually run Windows. Once Bootcamp is ready, you will insert your install disk, and then Windows, in my case Windows Vista, will install, and within about an hour everything will be all configured and set up. Now, one thing about where different data lives, the Macintosh can read but not write to the Windows file system, whereas the Windows file system can't see the Macintosh system at all. So any data crossover, if you have files in Windows that you want to open on the Mac, you can do that automatically without having to reboot or anything like that. But if you have anything on your Macintosh side that you want to get into Windows, you've got to email it to yourself or something along that line. Plus, you can't save any files from the Mac onto the Windows side, only open them. Once you've installed Windows and you've booted it up and it's up and running, then you need to install any applications that you want to run as well. If you want to run Microsoft Office or any other applications, you have to do that at this point as well. Even if you've got Microsoft Office installed in the Mac, it's a different version of Microsoft Office. You have to have the native Windows version running in the Windows partition. As you can see here, we are now running Windows Vista on a Mac. I want to open up Internet Explorer. There it is. Can't run it on the Mac anymore, but I can run it in Windows on a Mac. And this is a Windows machine at this point. The only difference between this MacBook and another notebook you might pick up in the store is it doesn't have a right mouse button on the trackpad. We have to use an option key combination for the right mouse click. Everything else identical. Plug in any peripheral, it's going to work the exact same. All of the drivers, everything is the same between this and any other Windows machine. If you plug in a third-party mouse that has a right mouse button and a scroll wheel, works just the same on this MacBook running Windows as it would on any Windows machine. The first time that I saw the green fields of Windows showing up on a Mac, it was a unique experience. For so many years, the thought of running Windows on a Mac verged on sacrilegious, and I was kind of looking over my shoulder, making sure nobody saw me doing this. But this new diverse computing age, it just seems right. Bootcamp is elegant and really quite easy to install. Just take your time, read the documentation, back up, and think twice before you click the mouse. It's like cutting a board. Measure twice, cut once. There's really only one scary step, and that's where you partition and format the Windows drive. Other than that, you should be up and running Windows within an hour of starting the process. It's the beginning of a brave new age of computing. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at a different way to approach Windows on a Mac. So stick around. Blogs, podcasts, streaming video, you can find it all on our new website. Check out dototech.com.